my favorite part. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm Erin, and this is my co-host Pam, and today we're here to talk about getting visibility as the most important thing for getting business in the door. And we both have a lot of experience in this. I'm a copywriter and marketing strategist, and I work with adventurous action takers to get their messaging and strategy just right so that they can get visible and show up in a way that makes sense. And this is my co-host Pam, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm a remote work expert, and my mission is to help you reimagine work to find joy and optimize remote working. And I've created a community designed to help you do just that. I call it The Zone. We do virtual co-working and networking. And today we are going to chat about, how do you get that visibility that you need in your business? Because really, without it, you could have the best website, the best service, the best product, but you're not profitable, you're not doing the thing that you want to do. And when you're getting started, it can either seem really easy or really hard. It depends on your perspective. I've seen clients come to me with both. I've seen people build a website and be like, wait a minute, it's beautiful. Why am I not making sales? I just launched it.
Well, and I'm going to interrupt too, just so people know what we're doing and how to find us. We're here every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with a podcast that focuses on frank, fun, and focused discussion to help you solve some problems like this, whether it's getting visibility, whether it's doing some of these other things. So I want to make sure you know where to find us.
Sure.
And talk about some of the things. So, so how do you get visibility, Pam?
There's a lot of different ways, but the first one is showing up wherever you feel comfortable and talking to people. So, one of the ways that we're getting visibility is clearly through this show. We realized when we were just having conversations like the ones that we are recording now, that other people would benefit from them. Because a lot of times Erin would come to me and say, I'm having this thing happen with a client, or a client asked me how to solve this problem, what would you do? Or I'll say, I have a client who needs to message around X, Y, and Z. How would you recommend approaching it? And we realized that these are problems that everyone's facing.
Everyone's facing them. Yeah. And I think the thing is not only do people not know how to solve specific problems, but they don't know how to talk about what they do. Like if you're in a room with someone, you can have a conversation about it. But how do you show up when you don't know who else is in the room, when you can't see these people face to face? I had a client for a while who, or a client of a client rather, who didn't know how to respond to leads if she hadn't had some kind of a personal contact with them. And it was like, whoa, okay. So, it's just, it's figuring out where people are and then meeting them there. And so it's hard to know sometimes what to say or where to show up without that, physical handshake to kind of kick things off, or if you don't do handshakes, the bow, whatever it is in this post-COVID world. But yeah, so I'll let you kind of finish what you were saying. I didn't mean to interject.
No, it's okay. I think the thing is, though, is that there's really no wrong answer as long as you're being real with how you present it and knowing that you're just having a conversation. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Networking and getting visible is about talking to people, explaining what you do, learning what other people do, listening as much as talking, and adding value where you can. So, when somebody says, what do you do? And you say, I'm a doctor. Well,
what kind of doctor?
What kind of doctor? Ask
where do you
questions,
practice?
Open-ended questions. And being visible is about putting yourself out there consistently and having a clear message. Erin always says this, and she loves this one story she keeps telling. If you've watched our other episodes, you've heard it, but about, getting known for what people say when you're not in the room, you're known to do. So like when I'm not in the room, Erin would say, Pam's the queen of ideas. Like that's something she's said for years. She's the first one I think that ever said that to me. And now when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm a remote work expert and I help my clients with strategies. But a lot of times it comes as simple as just ideas. One of my clients started calling me the queen of ideas, and it kind of stuck. And other people have started saying that just from, Erin coining it. So whatever it is that you do, it's making sure when you get visible that you're showing the part of yourself and the explaining what you do that you want to be known for, so that is what other people then continue to say to amplify your visibility and your exposure.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting that you said the Queen of Ideas thing, and I'll tell the story a little bit later, but like you don't always know the value of what you do, how much you know, or even this aggregate knowledge from like however long you've been doing things. And like I've done like 25 different things, it feels like, over the last 20 years, and that may actually be accurate, but probably not. That all like kind of build together to create this aggregate knowledge, but because it hasn't been like one cohesive push, sometimes I don't even realize the knowledge I have that can help other people until we're talking about it, or how some of that background is valuable until someone reflects it back to me and they're like, hey, by the way, this is huge. Why don't you talk about this? I'm like, well, that feels like 6 lives ago, or that feels like, you know, I don't always see the relation for me, which is ironic because that is exactly what I can do for other people. And what's really funny is in this hot seat that I did last week, one of the questions they said is, what are you amazing at? And I was like, oh, shoot, what am I amazing at? And what's the proof? So I asked my husband, he's like, you are amazing at solving problems and coming up with solutions. And he said, you might not be the fastest solution, but you're going to come up with the best because you're going to look through and see like all these different paths from point A to point B or point A to point Z. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I can solve problems too. I'm going to find the fastest one and make it happen, but it's not always the best.
Right.
And there's value in both, but I'm like, So I come to you when I'm looking for ideas for me, because whereas I can come up with them for other people or for you or to help you get clarity on some of the things, I can't get out of my own way. And I think like that's really, really relevant to this discussion. Like when you're getting visible and you don't know what to talk about because it's all just, you've been practicing it for so long that it's like,
well, you also, the value. Like, not to cut you off, but you get fixated a little bit, Erin. Sometimes like you want to be a copywriter, right? Or I wanted to help people grow a business doing something they enjoy doing, you know, right? And you don't think about how all the stuff that led you to that point is what makes you qualified and valuable to your clients, or how to communicate it, because you get so stuck when we keep saying to keep it simple. And what's funny is when I was younger, and I'm talking like high school younger, I was very involved in student government and all kinds of leadership activities, and I did national events. It was great. And there was this one person who went to a local high school near me, and we knew each other really well. And he was really good at practically executing things, like taking a plan, making it happen. And I always had a million ideas. And some people would say to me, you can't just have all these ideas and these big visions. You have to implement them. And I was like, I know, but I need a vice president or like a second person.
You need a VP of ops. Yeah.
I can sit down and say, here's the idea. Let me give you the plan. You execute it. I'm going to make sure it's authentic to the goal and that we're on target. I'm going to help manage it, but you've got to get into the details. So as my career has evolved and different things that I've done, I've always found that that's like where my role has been. But when you go into communicating that to some people, you don't always even see the value, because other people, like the person who's in that VP role, is just looking for someone to give them that big plan to execute. They can't think the way that I can, just like I can't as easily operate and execute the way they can, because everybody works differently. So when I talk about finding your zone of genius and then automating and delegating and eliminating the rest, it comes back to finding those partnerships that are going to help you do what you need to do, whether they're actual partnerships where you work together on something or they're referral partners. Because when you are hanging out where your audience hangs out and where your referral partners hang out, and you're visible and you're showing up and you're doing what it is you do and talking about it, you're going to find those people that are in line with you that are then going to say, listen, like, for example, I don't want to write your copy. I would love to help you figure out what it should say and what your message should be, because now we know what it is that you're going to do in your business, what your niche is going to be, or how you're going to advocate for that role for a remote job that you really want. But you need to work with Erin so that when you write your bio or you write your web copy, whatever you're writing, she can put those words on paper much better than I can. So we have that referral partnership. So the key when you're talking about being visible, it's not just showing up in a way that you're going to attract clients, but it's developing those other partnerships and relationships where people can speak to your strengths as well, because you don't want to do everything and they don't want to do everything. So instead of being intimidated by those relationships, that's what's going to propel you further and faster than anything.
Well, and I think, yeah, I think one of the things, especially people who are starting out or who are new to the online world, is they pay attention to what other people are doing and then try to do the same thing, which is fantastic. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, it goes back to that authenticity. If you're not showing up where it's comfortable for you or in a way that's comfortable to you, or where your audience is or where your referral partners, where they hang out, you're not going to have the results that you want. You're going to feel like you're spinning your wheels, and you might be crazy visible and people might say, wow, you may be building authority without even realizing it. But until you start to get traction and money in your pocket, like that can be really challenging. So try that, but also like figure out, talk to people who do what you want to be doing, because that's the thing. Like as an entrepreneur, you can say where you want to be in your tagline and start to get known for it and pick up the skills along the way. Like you shouldn't say you're an expert at something and then like have no idea how to, like if it's email marketing, have no idea how to write email, or have no idea what a good strategy is. And it doesn't have to be the perfect one. It doesn't have to be the best. It has to be solid.
Right.
So you have to have some experience, but like, I feel like you can also own that space if you've got the network of people who can help you. And so I feel like I'm not saying this as well as I would like to, but I feel like you have a lot of control as an entrepreneur, as someone who's going out and wanting to do more than just create a job for yourself, but to create authority.
And make an impact.
You can learn that. You can learn it as you're going. Like there's nothing that says, it's like when you see those job descriptions online and you like were back before you owned your own business and you wanted to actually go out and get a job, which was a previous episode we talked about. You didn't probably have all the qualifications for every job that you tried out for, and you didn't have to, because there's some measure of it that you can learn as you're going. The same applies here. You don't have to have 100% of the qualifications because you can learn them.
Right.
And I think that's part of getting visible is people have a little of imposter syndrome and they don't have that confidence.
Absolutely. Well, there's a pressure that makes that worse. So when you're all of a sudden in business, especially when you go full in and you're not working part-time alongside it, there's that pressure to make money now that makes people feel like I need to say what's going to convert right now. And that's a lot of the background that I've found from working with different people that feeds that insecurity.
When you never know who's watching. I think that's the other thing is I may be booked up till August right now, which I actually am. But if Pam might tag me in these copywriting posts and I can throw my hat in the ring, because you never know what people's timelines actually are. But more importantly, other people may be searching because they don't want to get bombarded in their inbox, but they want to see who's out there. They want to see who shows up in a mature way. So always respond if you see stuff. But I think there's more to it than that. There's like knowing your background too.
So I think also remembering that you're not two-dimensional. So like just because you had a job like driving a train and now all of a sudden you want to paint houses, it's okay. Like if the person that used to work with you on the train didn't know you like to paint houses and they see you, it doesn't mean that you're a fraud because they didn't know that part of your personality or that skill. Similarly, it could be a new skill that you're learning, and that's okay too. So a lot of the imposter syndrome that people come to me with and a lot of the concern about showing up and being visible is people want to be real, but they feel like somebody out there is going to call them on it and then they're going to be embarrassed. Own it. Be who you are now. Be who you are today. Be who you want to be. One of the best pieces of advice, a friend of mine.
Who you want to be. Yeah.
Who you want to be.
Take out the rear view mirror.
It's true. I mean, one of my best friends growing up, he lived across the street. He's extremely successful. He and I were kind of the curators of our friend group and would bring people together. He used to say that he would dress for the job he wanted, not the job that he had early in his career when we were like right out of college. He would wear like a suit or like a tie and be in a more management style garb. So he would be seen in that role, even though he wasn't qualified yet. So people would see that he was serious. And it was amazing. And some mentor had told him this advice, but that's what I tell you to do in your business. If you want to be the premium rock star songwriter, then start doing it and act like it and look like it and show up like it. If you're working with your first client ever, show up like you have 100. It's not their business whether you have 1 or 100. And I'm not telling you to say that you have 100 when you have 1, but act like you would if you had 100 and you were making that 10K month goal that you start off with, or 100K month goal, whatever it is. And the key, this is the key to all of it, is knowing that what works for one person is not going to always work for somebody else. So a lot of the coaching and consulting programs that are out there are going to say, follow these 5 steps to get to this goal in 27 days. And it will work for some people. It will not work for everyone. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad program. It just may be the right one for you. And one of the things that I think is very unique that Erin and I have in common is that we have models and frameworks for how we work with people, but we remain flexible to do things in an authentic way, because you hear that word constantly out of both of our mouths, in a way that fits what you're trying to achieve. And it's important because when you're showing up and you're being visible, you want to be visible doing what it is you do in the way that you work, because it's going to appeal. Some people like very rigid procedures that they know when they hire you for your copy project, that it's going to take 3 days to get this, 7 days to get that, 12 days to get something else, and in 20 days you're going to have a new website. Other people don't care about that. They just want to see what the end goal is going to be and know that, sometime in the next 6 months it'll happen. There's very different copywriters with very different personalities that take very different approaches to get you something maybe even similar in the end, but the process could be different. And knowing, when Erin meets with you, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what to expect. And she's really good about keeping things moving forward. So when I meet somebody who wants to get something done, they're serious about moving forward, and I know they're going to appreciate the quick responses and really efficient process that Erin can provide, I'm going to say you need to work with her. When I know somebody's kind of more slow, creative, they're going to frustrate Erin. She's not going to like working with them. And not...
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I would say I think, I think I have a framework in place with the idea that most people want to get something in and get it done. And that's who tends to come to me. But I love working with creatives because they're very different. And so it doesn't mean that we can't ideate. It just means that the project structure will look different. And so we'll have to talk about what that looks like and communicate expectations, because they might say,
I just know they're not ready. Sometimes people are not ready. Like they're sort of not ready to move forward. I wouldn't bring them to you yet, because there are people who I think it's more than ideating.
I'm going to push back at you there. Okay. I think it's very worthwhile to have that initial conversation to see where people are. And then here's the thing though. I love working with people who have a business coach. And there are some ways that I can help people figure out their packages if they're really close to the end point. But what I have learned over the last however many years is that it is so much better to work with someone who has someone like you in their corner who can help them with some of that clarity. I can do a lot of it. And if it's...
And that's what I meant. I meant if there's somebody who's not ready at all, like there are people that are just, they're not there at all.
And the challenge is that sometimes people think they're ready. Yes. And then as we get halfway in, it's like, well, we need to pump the brakes here.
Right.
And, some of those mistakes I've made have been not pumping the brakes. It's like, but people also have to be ready to communicate and be like, wow, I thought I was ready. I'm not. Let's pause this. And then we figure, and sometimes it's just like a project restart fee. Because it's just a matter of like, oh, hey, I'm not ready right now. I need some more time to get clear on this, instead of trying to push things through. So, but to get back to the visibility thing, a lot of what I do too is helping people figure out what they know. Mm-hmm. Because, and I think that's a very different thing from the web copy. So you might say, hey, I've got all this experience in public policy. I don't know how it's relevant. And we could talk, and I could be like, look, I see these 6 things that are relevant to what you're doing now. What can we do to make that part of your knowledge bank that you talk about on a regular basis.
Sure.
And then how is that relevant to your audience? Like a lot of that, either you or I could help them depending on where they come in the line.
And that's why we offer some of the things that we do that we work together, because sometimes the power is in multiple different vantage points and perspectives that we can provide. And
because you need somebody who can reflect it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And someone might say, this is what I'm hearing. And you'll be like, no, it's actually not the case at all. And sometimes someone will say the opposite. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so right.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea like that my degree in these things, which are in no way related to what I do, are valuable. And so that's what both Pam and I can do. We can help reflect that back to you. And in fact, someone's like, so for the last however many years, you've been helping, I think we're at 5 to 10 now. I've been helping other people get visible and gain that visibility without maybe not doing such a good job for myself until the last 2 years. But
you're doing just fine.
Well, no, I mean, like in the last 2 years, I've come into my own as far as it goes, but I've learned some lessons from helping other people do it. So like, for example, Pam's like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm listening, not blah, 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 but I'm listening to what you're talking about. And I'm like, there's a book in this. And like, I watched your eyes get really big and then your face lit up. Like you got this big smile and you're like, oh my gosh, totally. Mm-hmm. And so whether she's ready for it now, but you know, one of the things that I'm finding too is I talk to people who are doing big things, but aren't talking about them, or who are doing cool things, but aren't talking about them. And they're like, gosh, I'm not getting people in the door. And it's like, well, let's talk about what you're doing. And so maybe that means putting a speaker page on your website. Maybe that means showing up, because then once other people see that, it's like, oh, hey, it's like putting something in a tagline and an email signature that says podcast host for Pam and I now, which I have not done yet, and I need to. So
I think at the end of the day, the key is that you're showing up. We started with that. We're going to end with that. You know, you need to show up. You need to be outgoing. You're not bragging when you're communicating what you do. You're not being obnoxious when you're telling people what you do. You're just putting it out into the world, because it's wonderful to let your work speak for yourself, or have that referral network where people speak for you. But you ultimately also need to be in a position where you find a way to put out into the world and communicate who you are, what you do, what you believe in, what experiences you have, how you can help, why people should choose you.
And figure out where to do it. Like that's the other thing. It's not just about knowing the right thing to say. It's about knowing where your audience, where your potential referral partners, like Pam mentioned earlier, where do they hang out? Or maybe your potential referral partners are people who do what you do and are looking for the right fit for them. And you might be the perfect person to take on some people that either they can't handle, like they can't handle the flow of, or maybe it's a personality fit and they know that you would be a better personality. So those people are always great to have conversations with.
Right. And I think it's also important to recognize that confidence is not something that everyone has off the bat, even when they appear to. So, you know, if Erin and I would have tried to launch our podcast 3 years ago, it may look very different than it does today, not just by the lessons that we've learned that we can share with you, but just our comfort level on camera. You know, I'm very comfortable on camera and live and in person. That's just how I like to show up. But it took time where I would say I could come without a huge script and plan so that I felt authentic. Not because I ever felt like an imposter so much, but I kind of saw other people doing it a certain way, and I fell into that trap that we talked about.
That's what we can do, and that's the way it has to be done. And
exactly.
Rules.
Exactly, all the rules. And I learned that there are no rules. So next week, we're going to talk about how you gain confidence to show up, despite all the rules that you think exist, or the other things that may be causing you to pause.
Yes, I love that. Despite all the rules that you think are there. I'm adding that into our notes right now.
But I'll just say this, you know, I think what's important in visibility, to wrap up today, is that you are speaking your mind, that you are helping people the best way you can, that you're always taking the opportunity to learn and grow and expand and evolve, and that you find people that know, like, trust, and care about you, and you feel the same way in return to reciprocate to expand those networks that we've been talking about over the last couple of shows, because all of those things are going to be the gold that are going to help you do more of what you do best and show up and be seen for who you truly are. Because we all are always growing. And by the time you watch this episode, Erin and I could be offering something new and different, or doing something a little different, because this one's a pre-recorded live version. And we reserve that right, and you should too. But knowing that you can continuously grow and evolve and expand is, I think, the difference between an entrepreneur and someone who is going to pivot to the opportunity and to the things that we learn, and somebody who's going to remain stuck and stagnant and firmly footed where they are now, which may or may not suit them moving forward.
So I agree with everything that you've said, and I have more thoughts on that we'll maybe bring into next week's conversation. So please do join us. And if you have questions for us in the meantime, reach out to us at hi@thezonecommunity.com. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.